We're back. Cringe. So last weekend, Ryza released a major update for Automobilista 2, and I went through the release notes and the dev update just to check out what's new. And simply put, they improved the whole game. The most important things though, physics, force feedback, AI and audio, at least according to their own list. They of course also added new DLC in the form of historical F1 cars for the 1991 and 1993 season. They both have a licensed McLaren F1 car, so that's really cool. However, when you scroll down a little further on the dev update, there's something really interesting there that I'm very keen on trying, and that's updated wet weather physics. Now, they say the wet weather driving is like nothing they have ever seen before, which is quite a big statement if you ask me. Also, the rubbered racing line will get slippery, so you'll have to use real world rain lines. So, let's jump in on the first thing that came to mind when I read this. For the first race, we are doing a rental kart race on a Brazilian karting track, of which I forgot the name. But we are here. Now, before we get anywhere into the video, if you are located near an outdoor karting track, wait for a rainy day, put on your oldest clothes, or better, borrow a race suit at the track, bring spare clothes because you'll be drenched, and drive a couple of heats. I promise you it'll be worth it, because I'm fairly certain they will let you drive on slicks in the rain, which is something you have to experience, whilst also being a great learning opportunity, and also why I chose this as the first race I was going to test. So the reason we are starting dry is because I wanted to make sure everyone was using slicks, and also to see the transition from dry to wet. Somebody on the inside now? No, not. Oh, it was. P4. AI definitely putting up a fight. I mean, it truly does feel like driving one of these rental cars a little bit. Well, not a little bit. I think it's fairly well done. And it's fun. That's also quite important, I'd say. AI puts up a fight. And I see our first sign of things to come. Getting some droplets on the visor. So we are ending this race in the rain. There it seems a little bit drier still. Now, as you can see by the delta, I'm still close enough to the lap time I did at the beginning of the race. But when I get to the next corner, it's suddenly very, very wet. Now, I'm not sure if this was because the way I set up the session, but it felt maybe a little too abrupt, going from a dry regular track pace to full rain. So therefore I decided to do another test on another car track combo. Oh, whoa, keep it on. AI seems to be struggling with this weather. It's not easy to drive, but it's definitely not as hard as they make it seem. Definitely not hard. Did I set up a time limit I'm not aware of? Did they red flag it? Oh, I think this is just a finish. There we go. There we go. Race over. Oh. For the next rain test, I had to use a British track. So I set up a session on Alton Park using the Formula Ford on a heavy rubber track, again starting in the dry. I made the session longer to avoid the abrupt transition from dry to wet, but still I didn't feel like there was a realistic crossover point. I saw some other videos and live streams on which they tried a wet to dry transition, and that seemed realistic to me, so again, this could be down to the way I set up the session. As you can see, wrestling the car on the limit in the wet is very fun. I'm using footage after I pitted from slicks to wets, because obviously slicks are undrivable in these conditions. However, I felt like the rubbered in racing line was still having plenty of grip as I'm experimenting with other racing lines. And I found that the normal dry racing line was definitely the fastest way to drive the track. Again, and I can't emphasize this enough, These are my first experiences with the game. I tried many different settings on many different combinations, but always came to the same conclusion. Now please, if you have found a combo that works, well, please let me know in the comments and I will definitely have a go at that. Now on to the main course of this video. I am currently on the last lap of qualifying for the 1991 Brazilian Grand Prix, using the generic V10 1991 car. I set the AI to 120 and as you can see they provide a nice challenge in the quali. Before we get into the race, I feel like it must be said that the visuals and audio of this DLC are absolutely stunning. The game runs smoothly all the time with a frame rate well above 165 on a single QHD monitor, and I don't think I had a single stutter in my entire time of testing. Hi there, Future Ari here. Whilst editing the video, Ryza released a hotfix which included adjustment of the AI lines on the track we are currently driving. During the next segment you'll see that the AI is struggling to say the least, so please note that Ryza already addressed this issue. P6. I think one of the worms almost crashed there. Now the other one crashed. And there's another crash. So this wasn't even the first attempt at the race. I had to restart multiple times just to get through the first corners, and even then, as you saw, the Williams always decided that Formula Drift was something they were just simply more into. So I backed out of the race to decrease the aggression setting of the AI, but that didn't improve a lot, to be honest. Eventually though, after some attempts, I got through the first lap cleanly and decided to keep going. Unfortunately, I will never get to drive a historic 91 F1 car like this, so remarks about realism of this DLC are a bit nonsensical. But if I had to give one piece of advice regarding this update, or maybe even Automobilista 2 in general, it's this. Get rid of the in-game force feedback damping and use the damping of your wheel. Or at least minimize this setting if your wheel has no damping setting in the firmware. I, for example, disable it completely in-game and use 10% in the Fanatec control panel. The game default is set at 60 and that to me makes all cars feel extremely numb. I expected old F1 cars with minimal electronics to feel very raw and direct, but I only had this feeling when I got rid of the damping. Back to the race. I set the race to be 1/3 of the full distance they raced in 91 and made one pit stop with tire change mandatory. My strategy was to start low on fuel on the soft and do a fast first stint and refuel and switch to the medium. During the first stint, tire wear was feeling good, so I decided to switch to the soft for my second stint as well. Quite a nice clean pit stop, still no one in the pit lane, so the AI definitely going for another strategy, like drifting into turn 1, that seems to be something they really enjoy. We exit the pit in 13th position, which means we probably have to do some overtakes before they pit to stay close to the McLarens in the lead. And to absolutely no one's surprise, the Williams in front tries to make a move into the next corner, makes contact, spins the car out, slowing me down while I take evasive action. So we skip to the last part of the race, and most laps I spent trying to gain on the leading McLarens with some success, and this was also maybe a little concerning since I am running at 120 AI difficulty, which is also the maximum setting. I didn't adjust any setup parameters apart from fuel load and tire compound, and even though I know the track pretty well, the car was obviously new to me. When you spend some time to learn the car properly, I fear the AI just simply won't have the pace of a decent human driver. If you just want to have a quick fun race, the level of the AI won't be an issue, but I simply expected more of a sim title with this amount of depth. With 3 laps to go, the McLarens in front almost made their way by the lap cars, and I get really close to them, smelling my opportunity to make the result more authentic to the real life race in 91. That race was won by Senna, who is currently also leading this race, and Gerhard Berger finished 3rd. So ideally I make my way past one McLaren at least. Funny thing is, in the real race of 91 the top 3 finished within 6 seconds of each other. Whilst pushing in the last laps of the race, I started to struggle a bit with the left front tire because I had too many lockups. Maybe pushing a little too hard as well, making some mistakes as I demonstrate right away. So, all in all, I've enjoyed the update so far. The new cars and tracks look and feel amazing and are definitely worth the price you pay for them. However, I do feel like the update is another work in progress, and when I read the release notes for the first time, I kinda expected more, especially on the AI and range side. The Automobilista 2 package as a whole is, especially if you pick it up on sale, absolutely packed with value. It has such a great variety of cars, ranging from historic and modern F1 cars to GT cars to rallycross to prototypes to Brazilian stock cars to Porsche Cup cars. The list is endless. If you combine this with the extensive track list and all the features including the weather and the day and night cycle, you can literally sink days, weeks, or maybe even months into exploring different contents of this game. And that is exactly what Automobilista 2 is all about for me. I can drive GT3 cars on Spa in probably every other sim out there, but Automobilista 2 and also Automobilista 1, to be honest, are the only games where I can drive a GT3 on Spa first and drive a racing class called Sprint Race on Santa Cruz del Sol that you are currently watching next. So, in conclusion, I think this update is good, but still rough around the edges. I would say that it does give you a good reason to buy Automobilista 2 if you haven't already. This update is in my eyes confirmation that you are investing your money into a sim that will provide free updates for the base game and is being worked on for hopefully years to come. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't hesitate to leave a comment and I'll leave you alone with the rest of this footage of this amazing race I had.